still on?
Furious.
What the hell are you talking about?
Title, well, it's just what we're doing. We're winging it. Sandor and myself.
What up?
What's the facts, Niagara?
Not grammatically correct. It's morally correct.
Totally ruined the intro. It's like two kids playing around on the...
That's right.
On the, you know...
We're down in the rec room.
Back in the day, it was like... we had a tape deck that had a recording feature on it that you could put some mics through. And me and my cousin Dougie used to like pretend that we were DJs. We'd, you know, talk the music in like pros.
I do it all the time myself.
It was the greatest fun ever, man. We had tapes after, you know, one day I'm going to find those tapes like I did the other day. I found my, my first radio show ever on CHSC 1220. Are you talking to the right side of the mic?
I am talking into the correct side of the mic.
Cool.
Am I talking at all? Can you hear me, world?
Excellent. I can hear you perfectly. Everyone's
Hello, world.
good. Yeah.
What's going on?
Let's see if we can give the listeners and subscribers...
It's election season. How's that feel?
A picture
Are you filled with hope that it could be a better world if only the right candidate is elected?
This is... I'm hanging on to the possibility, however perilous it is for me to believe and be hopeful that there's a purple wave coming in.
Purple wave, huh?
It's all going to be better.
I'm wearing my purple shades.
Later,
The future's so bright, I got to wear shades.
It's better than the reality of thinking that Justin Trudeau sits in a position to be elected with a majority government and no opposition, despite the fact that 60% of the people will vote against him.
Well, he is a very loyal opposition. Like an opposition so loyal, in fact, it's the same side. I'm talking about the NDP, of course. And
yeah, and the Conservatives. It's, you know, this idea, I've heard it floated before that, oops, hope we got mics. Yeah, we got mics. That the Conservatives and the Liberals and the Republicans and the Democrats got together a long time ago and said, okay, listen, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to pretend that we're on opposite sides of the political spectrum, but when we get power and we'll just take turns forever, we'll just do whatever the hell we want. And it's all for the greater good, and it's all the same political party. The left and right wing are two of the
two wings of the same bird of prey.
Mm-hmm. Bird of prey.
And they're swooping in now. They're swooping in. My goodness. Of course, yesterday we had a big black pill day. And for those who aren't aware, I'm sure you are, a black pill is a pill of hopelessness, a pill of despair. And we're despairing, to be honest. Yesterday,
Furious.
Doug Ford's announcement laid out what we can expect this winter, obviously with vaccine certifications and the QR code. And so we're going to talk about that today. I think I got some links pulled up here on the screen for that, and that's it. That's what's going on. We're clinging desperately to any sense of hope, and but that to me doesn't mean the election at all. In fact, I consider the election to be a major distraction during the best season to protest in. This should be protest season, civil disobedience season, but instead we're campaigning. And of course, what that'll do is that'll create a false democratic consent. The whole idea is that on September 21st, when Justin Trudeau's still prime minister, they'll be able to say, well, if you didn't like him, you should have voted against him. And then they'll give him a false mandate. And that's what concerns me is democracy is really sort of a ruse in this case. Frankly, I don't consider it legitimate. You can't democratically remove my individual rights. 99% of the population can think XYZ, but they're still my rights. So that's where we're at. I know you've got some strong feelings.
Well, I was rammed up against it in my men's group today.
Yeah.
When I asked, well, maybe I shouldn't give too much of this away, but I asked the leader of the group. It's a Christian men's group, but it's often very little scripture.
Yeah.
And it's more like well, I like the support group aspect of it because there's so much wisdom and knowledge there, and it's based in biblical teachings, which I'm kind of not new at, but not very well versed as far as, knowing the Bible, knowing my scripts and everything. And so I asked Pastor Bill if he was being inundated with religious exemption requests for vaccines. And he says, oh, you have no idea. And then he confided in one of his struggles that he's been put up against right now.
Right.
And he's had many over this lockdown. I refuse to call it a pandemic because it's flu season, basically, to me. And I'm very careful in flu season. For almost 30 years, I haven't touched a common doorknob or an elevator button or a bath.
You germaphobe?
No, I just don't like getting sick, so I wash my hands a lot, and I don't touch common surfaces that much.
I lick them.
I don't share joints or bongs. I don't let people drink out of my cup.
Right.
I don't, my mother used to pick up my plate, and she says, I know you hate when I do this. I said, no, I kiss you on the lips. You can eat off my fork. I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is when you touch my food and then you leave some for me. I don't want that anymore.
Right.
I clean my hands before I touch my food.
Well, the government's got their grubby fingers all over our rights.
So I've always been that guy that's very careful. When I'm sick, I don't go out. And that's, I've gotten over it. But, every time
Why
I
is
walk
that? You had
into
what they called symptoms?
Yeah. Like,
Oh, we
who
don't do
wants to go
those
to the
anymore.
grocery store?
We don't do symptoms anymore.
I mean, I guess I go out when I have a cold, so I'm not that. But I don't. I tell people I've got a cold. I don't pass the joint to them and say, wash your hands or don't put this in your mouth type of thing. Like I just put it like this. I put the thing like so it holds like this, and I put my fingers up to my face.
Right.
And I'm just always been conscious of that, but less so the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, I wash my hands when I get home from shopping and stuff like that before it's like your kitchen. You want it clean before you eat, before you cook. You don't cook in a dirty kitchen. You don't prepare food with dirty hands.
Right.
So, yeah, in grade 12, they called me Jim Fannon. Dave Beaver was his nickname for me.
So you were a germaphobe?
I'm just careful. I don't like getting sick.
Germaphobe.
I don't like getting sick. So I go out of my way to wash my hands, keep my hands clean, not touch common surfaces other than that.
Did you ever get sick, though?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I get sick, but I don't remember the last time I had a flu.
Right.
I really don't remember the last time
Most times I get sick, I usually blame myself. Not enough hydration, too much staying up late, too much smoking.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I get ill frequently, but usually it's entirely my own lack of care for myself.
Well, you've got a great point there because, I can equate this to every election campaign I've ever run in.
Mm-hmm.
2 days following that, I'm usually sick with a cold. With a really bad cold.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're,
Sure.
You're going. All of a sudden it stops. The music stops. There's no chairs to sit in, and everyone's gone. The party's over, and you got to clean it all up now. You got people around you this whole time supporting
everything you hoped for,
pumping
dashed.
you up, telling you're great, and then the next day you line up and you collect your 2,000 votes at the finish line, and you're like, oh fuck, that sucked.
Well, we're collecting.
Then
we're
I end up
collecting votes
sick.
now.
So that's always like an indication that your immune system's been beat down. You've been going too hard. You've been living under too much stress, and now you're sick.
That's right. You need some vitamin D.
Mm-hmm. And I brought this point up the other day. I know it's not lost on you, but nowhere at any time has anyone been talking about the things Joe Rogan talks about? Lose
Right.
some weight, get some exercise, take your vitamins, take some essential fatty acid, eat your hemp oils, eat
Right.
your CBDs, control your inflammation, eat well, watch the junk food, don't drink too much, don't smoke. Like this idea, this lack of personal responsibility that we put everything off into a shot that hasn't been proven its effectiveness or efficacy yet. And I think it's dropping all the time. It's getting less effective and people are getting sick with the shot. This will probably get us shut down from YouTube, but you know,
Which is brutal.
The lack of personal responsibility and the lack of health. Like, this is not health care. This is sick care.
Right.
The system doesn't work. The doctors don't get paid unless you're sick. I know that's a conspiratorial look at things, but a healthcare system is something that keeps you healthy, that rewards doctors for keeping you healthy. And this is a Green Party platform.
Okay.
It's not healthcare. It's sick care. We
Right.
treat you when you get sick instead of trying to keep you healthy. None of our leaders are talking about eating right, getting exercise, dropping weight.
They're all in the pocket
contributors.
of big pharma.
Yeah, I hate to keep going back to the big conspiracy theory, but I mean, day after day after day, we've been inundated with just our rights being taken away, the government pretending they know what's best for us, and the government's never known what's best for me.
Conspiracy fact.
The government in Ottawa doesn't know what's best for Ridgeway or Fort Erie or Port Colborne. They're too far away.
Right.
The government doesn't know what's best, what works for me.
Certainly.
You
We're
know?
not a collective. I
Okay.
mean, there are collective elements to society, but we are each individuals.
Mhm.
Sovereign individuals at that. That's the main thing about individual rights. And, you know, I don't think either of us are exactly, you know, like abortion isn't our big issue, but these days this my body, my choice thing is coming up, and it's been appropriated by the, I mean, it's fairly appropriated.
What comes around goes around, weirdly.
Yeah. So, I mean, so we're going to talk about some of the hypocrisies there too. So, you know, one of the hypocrisies of the vax certificate is that it makes marginalized groups more marginalized, and yet it is equity advocates who are advocating its usage. So, I mean, the hypocrisy is absolutely through the roof on that. You think of the case of New York City, where there's the clearest examples of this narrative of 70% of black people in New York City are not vaccinated, which means 70% of black people can't go to the gallery, can't go inside to the restaurant,
Yeah, nobody's
and
talking
on
about
and
that.
on and on.
Mhm.
Now, of course, the response argument is, hey, just get vaccinated. It's like, well, you know, the racially, there's a history there. There's racial experimentation. Indigenous peoples have been subject to experimentation. Black people have been subject to experimentation. And this is a big experiment, whether or not they want to admit it. Basically, they're rolling out the injections and then seeing how it goes. Well, that is, by definition, an experiment. Did you know there's going to be a third shot when you started the procedures? If you didn't, then you were experimenting. So we clearly were in this big experiment. What we don't know is what it'll look like in a year or two. And, you know, in the last 8 months, millions and millions and millions of injections. I really can't think of anything in human history that is parallel to this at all. So we're in an absolutely, totally unprecedented era, which is kind of exciting, I guess, you know, but it's also a little exhausting. We're coming up on 20 years since September 11th, 2001, which for me was one of the most formative moments. Well, it was the defining feature of my entire adulthood. I was 18 years old, and bada bing, bada boom, the Twin Towers came down, and it was used. The fear that was generated out of that was used to invade various countries, Afghanistan and Iraq. And so I actually took journalism as a consequence of it. I went to school for journalism as an anti-war journalist. I want it to be a fear buster. I thought that the truth would prevent those immoral interventions of invasions. What did they call it? Preemptive war. So I see a lot of parallels between then and now, because the fear that was created in the war on terror has been magnified in the war on the virus. And so where 20 years ago the immoral intervention was invading Afghanistan, now the immoral intervention is invading all of our lives. And it's the same continuum in the war on the individual rights. You know, think of the continuum from 9/11 till today. Everything from body scanners at the airports to snooping laws where they can look into your email because they're trying to bust a terror cell. And then now it's on and on. The individual rights have been encroached upon. And in my view, through what's known as false flag type attacks.
It was just, you're completely right to point to 9/11 because you got the Patriot Act that came in after that.
That's right.
And the U.S.
The temporary Patriot Act.
Homeland Security.
We're going on 18 years of that or 19 years of that temporary Patriot Act.
And then they get caught snooping on everyone.
Right.
And what? It's no problem because terrorism.
Fully justified because they're keeping us safe. But the apparatus, the anti-terror apparatus, which was used and built to target Muslim extremists, has been converted to targeting American extremists. So now no longer is the anti-terror apparatus aimed at your Al-Qaeda's and your ISIS's. Now they're aimed at your Proud Boys and so forth. So we were right 20 years ago to be deeply skeptical of the interventions that were taking place in the name of fear. And I think we're still just as right now, if not even more so. I mean, it's been 9/11 every single day for 18 months in terms of the tension and the anxiety and the propaganda and even the body count. I mean, the body count is through the roof right now. You know, through intubators, through dehydration, through not just the virus, but malpractice. The body count of malpractice in the last 18 months is through the roof. More people died from not getting their cancer screenings than died on 9/11. Globally, there are people walking around in their last months alive right now with tumors in their bodies that could have been addressed, but weren't addressed because the virus was more important. And we're just scratching the surface. But you know what we should talk about is yesterday's press conference. Would you like to see a clip?
Yeah.
Are you ready for some clips? You got something to say first?
No.
Okay, let's get some clips. Let's take a look at our clips today. So, yesterday, let's take a look at this clip. I like this clip. So we've got here, how's your audio? Can you hear this?
Step towards getting people who
Can you hear that over there in the internet land?
Anti-vaccine to step up and get vaccinated.
No problems.
So here's a media guy asking Hergy on August 3rd, about vaccination passports. And this is what Hergy said. And so this was actually a really great response. This is an accurate response. This is one I agree with. And the contrast between how he frames the issue here and the position that they took only weeks later is very stark. So we'll just take a listen.
Full screen that road.
I clicked the full screen, it glitched. It's like in some sort of, because I'm not logged in maybe.
Oh, that's okay. That's good.
To step up and get vaccinated?
I think it's certainly an option to go down that road. I do think we need to be cautious about rushing towards that. We've never really required vaccinations for most people, in society.
Dr. Hergy said we should be cautious about rushing towards that. And let's understand why.
Society. there's limited sectors, healthcare sector, where we require certain vaccinations, and I think requiring the COVID vaccine makes a lot of sense there, just given the vulnerable group. But I think we probably should think about the precedent of requiring vaccines for the general public at large.
We should think about the precedent of mandatory vaccines for the general public.
If we're going to require
How long should we consider that precedent?
I think about 24 days until we decide to completely flip-flop on this position.
for COVID-19, influenza, we have 1,300 deaths on an average year in Ontario from influenza. In a bad flu season, it's going to be much higher than that. It, leads to lots and lots of hospitalizations. There's always a big winter surge in our hospitalizations. We've never required influenza vaccination. And,
There's always a big winter surge in influenza, except in 2020.
What's the death
are we
count in
setting up-
Niagara?
0.
No, what's the death count in Niagara for COVID?
420-ish.
Okay, so in most flu seasons, we triple that amount of deaths in influenza. But
I'm not sure if he was limiting it to Niagara in terms of that number.
okay,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
okay.
He might be saying provincially. He didn't
Okay.
actually say in what jurisdiction that number exists.
Oh, okay.
a precedent that we would want to start requiring vaccinations for all of these different illnesses. I'm not sure we necessarily want to go down that road. Maybe we do, but I think we need to think through that as a society as a whole before we make that decision.
Wow.
We need to think it through as a society as a whole before we make that decision. We don't necessarily want to go down that road, said Dr. Hergy.
I think the other thing is that before we force people to get vaccinated, we really should exhaust our opportunities to get people voluntarily vaccinated. And, our numbers have definitely slowed down, but we haven't yet gone out and done a lot of the things that I think we could possibly get that number up. We're just, announcing some, pop-up clinics going to come around where we're going to be out in other community locations. By making it easier to get vaccinated, does that make a difference? As people get out of the summer and they're starting to think about school and more of their regular routines, is that going to actually lead to a bunch of people being vaccinated? So I don't think we've hit the end of what we can do voluntarily, and we probably want to see how high we can get voluntarily. And if we're high enough at a level where COVID is going to be controlled, to then decide, do we want to take that extra step of forcing vaccinations or not?
Monstrous.
The final thing I just want to note is that
Yeah, so you're saying, look, we got to continue with the voluntary phase until we get into the mandatory, and in his words, forced. He said forced. He didn't even say mandatory. What's this forced mean? Like it means held down and forced, but I'm sure he wasn't imagining that.
when we look
But he was cautioning against it. He was cautioning against vaccine passports. Dr. Hergy on August 3rd cautioned against vaccine passports, and here's the most crucial argument
a month
why.
ago.
Yeah.
1 month.
at who gets vaccinated and who doesn't, there's a pretty predictable pattern that people who are less likely to vaccinate are often of lower income. They're often people of racial minorities. There are people who actually, live perhaps less privileged lives than some of the rest of us. And I do worry that if we start to create a vaccination requirement, in some sense, this is the group who's actually being harmed the most because they're the least likely to be vaccinated. And we're taking marginalized groups and actually marginalizing them even more with the vaccine requirement.
We're taking marginalized groups and actually marginalizing them more with the vaccine requirements. A Dr. Hergy. Okay? So, I'm not the expert. He's the expert.
Supposedly.
And he said those words. But of course, this is classic Dr. Hergy, where he gives you what appears to be his real advice, and then he bends to political pressure. So, not even a month later, he's flipped the script. The entire script got flipped on him. So I've got some more thumbnails, or some more examples of that. Let's see here. I got I got this one from October 13th last year. So this is Dr. Hergy saying that the evidence on masks is not extremely strong one way or the other. And he says that it's a values question. Wait. So, hey, Mr. Scientist, what should we do? It's a values question. Okay. So this was him explaining in October about well after the mask mandate had already gone through. He said this.
Was that original August from last year, or a month ago?
The thing I just this other clip. This was from just 1 month ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is just 1 month ago. Wow. And so this it really hits on the core point. We're taking marginalized groups and actually marginalizing them further. And so that issue comes up here in this post, which is a series of parodies. Hey, how do I get this? I don't want that text at the bottom. All right. So these are parody graphics that were made in order to appropriate the language of Black Lives Matter and equity and to apply it to vaccine passports, basically making the same argument that Dr. Hergy just made. You're taking marginalized people and marginalizing them further. And so this is a series of satirically created graphics which touch upon the topic. Here's mentioning the Tuskegee experiments. BIPOC bodies have historically been exploited by the government for medical experimentations. Why trust them today? And so on and so forth. And these are meant to be like incendiary satire. It's meant to totally illustrate both that the vaccine passport is immoral and that the people who should be arguing the case, the equity-based leftists, aren't. And so we have a screenshot here from one of our favorites, Carrie Porter, saying that it's reprehensible that BLM and Amnesty logos are being appropriated to discourage people from vaccines. No, it's not to discourage black people from vaccines. It's to illustrate that the hypocrisy that Carrie, you're supposed to be on our side on this issue. Actually, we're on your side in terms of the equity thing. We're saying that more underprivileged people, marginalized people, will be more marginalized as a result of this policy. So there we go. There's a couple of...
I don't know how I missed all this.
You didn't know about any of this?
No, I didn't see those memes or that response.
Yeah. Well, I pump it out. Yeah, we're at WTF Niagara on Twitter, WTF Niagara. What the fuck? It really stands for what the fuck, not what's the facts. It's what the fuck. What the fuck, Niagara? What the fuck? Yeah, so that's that's my opening arguments in terms of the vaccine passport issue. Blowing up the opposition's hypocrisy, I think, is point number one. And so the Carrie Porters of Niagara were all in favor of the vaccine passport. And shame on you. And shame on every single individual who thinks that the vaccine passport is a reasonable thing to do. Like, the thing is with shame, though, is that they've tried to use shame on us. They were like, oh, you guys are shameful, reprehensible, deplorable. So it's really hard to convert that language back at them because they've already appropriated it at us. The very people who were calling Trump supporters Nazis are now requiring you show them your papers. So you were the Nazis the whole time. The whole time. The entire time. Fucking Nazis. But I can't use that word because it's been disempowered. Mm-hmm. They use that on us. We know it's a meaningless word. Mm-hmm. But literally, they're like medico-fascists. They want everything to be unified into a singular corporate medical fascist system that really baffles the imagination. All right, get out of here, Carrie.
What's that clip we started and didn't finish? The next Hergy clip.
Oh, well, I was just touching upon how, I basically recited what he said.
How much are they willing to alter lives versus how much do they want to make sure that they're taking those incremental efforts to protect
Is that on screen?
COVID-19? And I think council landed on where they think that balance should in terms of how much are they willing to alter lives?
How much are you willing to alter lives, council? Well, quite a bit, actually, apparently. Good golly. Good golly. It's really, what's difficult is we can't pinpoint the immoral person. It's like a full spectrum assault of immorality. So business organizations calling for the V-Pass, nurses associations calling for the V-Pass, the head of the hospital calling for the V-Pass, Chamber of Commerce, each city council. There was a news report that said 444 municipalities were calling for the V-Pass.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, but considering how feebly constructed the democratic mandate from these municipalities are. So we'll use our example here in Niagara. Last week, regional council called for V-Passes, except they didn't put it in the agenda. So typical procedure in the council is if you're going to have something that you want on the agenda, you file it before Friday so it can have public disclosure so that the public can delegate on that issue. No, not this time. Not whenever it's something controversial. They added it to the agenda that day, that night. And of course, in this case, it was a letter from Chair Bradley saying, we as Municipal Niagara Council call for vaccine certificates, yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, they got practically no public consultation. In fact, did what they could to avoid public consultation. Those grimy bastards. Get out of here, Hergy. You know how much money that motherfucker makes? You don't have to pay off people when you're already paying them $300,000 a year. What kind of lifestyle does the guy have? Do you think he could handle being like, okay, you're fired?
You just catch on with the next group.
Well, exactly what kind of responsibilities does he have that he's held hostage by his own employment? Because that's a lot of money. That's more money than we'll ever see in 1 year. And I'm not saying he doesn't earn it by being a professional, but that's a lot of fucking money. Here's a guy who gets a lot of money too. So I think this is where we're at. So people are living in a fantasy. The fantasy that they're living in is that you can just wave a magic wand and the unvaccinated will stay out of locations that you declare them illegal in. But the question was posed, yesterday's press conference, what happens when you get to the door and every business has to serve as bouncers? And this is the thing that people aren't necessarily thinking through. Like literally, how are you going to keep people out? What's that procedure like? So he describes it here. We got your audio?
To be reasonable and prudent. I believe this will be implemented fairly quickly and efficiently, and we'll move on to the QR code so there won't be those types of one-to-one interactions. So there will be a transition time that could be difficult, but...
Right. So this is actually really chilling. So he's saying that the reporter had to ask twice and not really get an answer. This was kind of the best answer to the answer that we got in a 5-minute response, and I clipped it down. The question was, what's going to happen when people have to bounce people out of their stores? Do they call the police? And his answer here is, yeah, it could be a difficult transition. Wait, what? Well, that's not, first of all, that's not an answer. So you're saying, yeah, we got to call the police when somebody shows up without proper certification? Well, that's horrible. But here he says, we'll move on to QR codes so there won't be those types of one-to-one interactions. So imagine that. So you have to show you scan the code and it beeps and the door opens. And there's no human involved anymore. Literally like a robotic AI system will decide if and when you can enter. And if there's a human there being like, hey man, can't you do the right thing? They'll be like, oh, the computer says you don't qualify, so we can, like, was that clear? It seems pretty clear how just absolutely egregious this is. And this is, of course, just stage one. This is at your gym, and this is at the club, and this, very simple. There's like 4 things that you're being blocked from right now. But they say in this press conference, they'll expand it to whatever they want to expand it to.
Yeah. It's leading the fine edge of the wedge, right? The sharp part of the wedge. They just say, oh, yeah, no, I don't think that passports are the way to go. A month later, oh, no, vaccine passports are the way to go. And going back, I don't know if we talked about this today.
Fourth
but
wave.
Anything that Justin Trudeau is doing now would normally be political suicide, and I'm not sure that he's not doing it right now, committing political suicide.
Let's hope.
I hope he is too, because any other time people would look at such tyranny and such arrogance and such lack of diplomacy and go, forget that guy. I'm not going anywhere near that liberal platform.
Right. Well, there's a couple scenarios. One scenario is that Justin Trudeau remains prime minister, which may not be the worst scenario because we have a very motivated resistance and rebellion group who will continue on knowing that he's a proven liar. I don't think a better scenario is Erin O'Toole becoming prime minister, because that'll just further dissuade the rebellion from rebelling, because the rebellion is essentially conservative. So just like the Americans sort of let Trump try to be their hero, there's a risk that we're going to let Erin O'Toole try to be our hero. And of course that's completely misplaced, totally misplaced, knowing the conservative policies and knowing how much of a spineless like blob of crap politically Erin O'Toole is. So I'm almost rather Justin Trudeau remain in power than Erin O'Toole take over, because I don't want to give anyone a new chance. I don't want anyone to say, oh, let's just give him a chance. No. First of all, I give two shits what the federal government says, because the municipal government is coming for my rights. The provincial government has come for our rights. So why do I even care who prime minister is? They took away our rights before the election.
Good point.
Justin Trudeau's like, the answer to tyranny is democracy.
That's why we're having an election, so I can continue my tyranny through democracy.
Right. Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Like me with a full mandate, a majority government to do whatever I see fit, and I don't have to appease the NDP or the Bloc Québécois.
Wow, that sounds really dreadful. I mean, because they got a lot through as is.
They did.
The economic collapse is going to be just devastating.
And I find it kind of hideous that Patty Du, or whatever, our Minister of Health, Haju, is saying, how dare Jagmeet Singh speak about integrity. Dude, have a little gratitude. He propped your government up for 6 years, on and off with the Bloc.
Right. Well, knives out. It's political. It's election season after all. How dare any of them speak about integrity? Mm-hmm. Really, anyone? I'm wearing the purple PPC shades. I went down to the PPC office. I picked up some signs. I got some signs out front of my property for the PPC. Hey, why not? The way I look at it is not vote splitting. No. I'm someone who wouldn't have participated, so it's adding my vote to the overall pool. Mm-hmm. Over 45% of Canadians never vote, don't vote. That's a very large pool of potential voters, if only you could get them involved. So a new party means potentially bringing more people in and not necessarily splitting them off. But we do have some numbers here. So let's take a look at my riding in Niagara Falls. So actually, it's pretty close. This was 2019. Okay. Right. So we got actually only a 2,000 vote difference between the Conservative and the Liberal there. And then we've got Peter Terrace in Niagara Falls, the candidate in Niagara Falls. I think he's doing a really good job on his campaign. Mm-hmm. I really like what he says. He's always saying the right thing. He's made himself visible on social media, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. He seems to have a backbone in his rhetoric, which I appreciate. He's a florist from the Fort Erie area. Mm-hmm. I think he'll get way more votes than what we're looking at here, 940 for the PPC in 2019. I think a lot more.
He's not foreign to a three-piece suit like that.
He's not. What's that?
A three-piece suit is not foreign to him.
That's
so
right.
He knows how to dress the part.
He knows how to dress the part.
It's important, man.
It's true. No, you could tell that he was the candidate when I went down and met him. So really what we're going to, will Tony Baldinelli get those kind of numbers next time? Will Andrea Kaiser get a boost this time? I mean, we'll find out. This seems to me like it's actually what you could consider to be a swingable. Like the Conservatives could lose this. Actually, the PPCs could split this and make Andrea the winner here. So, but if that's what happens, that's what happens. I think it's more important to vote your principles than to vote strategically.
For what you believe in, definitely.
I mean, because literally, otherwise you're providing your tacit consent to the policies that the CPC, the Conservative Party, are saying, which is the same thing. Instead of a vaccine mandate, it's like a testing regimen. So in order to get on a train, you have to demonstrate that you have a negative test. This is awful.
Mm-hmm.
This is awful. I would much rather forget about the entire thing and risk it. I'd rather risk everyone than government tyranny is far more dangerous than a virus. And these are the foundational. This is like laying the foundation of a tyranny. So it's not the exact same as like 1930s Germany, but it's the foundations of it. It's the 1920s.
We talked about this earlier. It's, I always counsel my friends or coach my friends that go to the number of the beast argument, or it's against my religion argument, or whatever, because it just sounds so radical and extreme. There's so many great arguments out there for not taking the shot, or not wearing a mask, or not seeing your family, or what have you. We know how to take care of ourselves. We know how to take precautions, and that we don't need to complicate the issue. There's too many the good arguments against whatever you're planning on without going, oh, it's the mark of the beast. But
this is the Overton window issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the ideas I've been hearing surrounding this is, it's not revelation. The shot's not the number of the beast, but what they're doing is laying the groundwork, testing you with masks, testing you with the shots, seeing how far they can push you, because this is setting the stage for the Antichrist, if you believe in God or whatever. But it's not the actual shot that's the number of the beast. It's this whole infrastructure that they're putting in place, designed to push the limits of what can government get away with.
The main point is to actually, like, what's the benefit of describing it in those terms? It depends who you're describing it to. So for a pluralistic, secular society, to go down that road is to not access the values of the listener. So, I mean, if you're pluralistic, which means various religions, not just the one religion. If you're secular, that means of the world, basically. That means not spiritual. It means ethics instead of morals, essentially. There are a lot of ethical reasons to take the positions we're taking that don't need to go down the spiritualist path. And while it is maybe truer, or like a deeper level of true, it's also a deeper level of alienation. It depends on who you're talking to. I think it's more than... I think of the Mark of the Beast stuff as sort of poetry. It's a poetic structure to... It's not like a literal... There isn't a literal beast. What, does it have horns? Does it have hair? Does it have, does it snarl when it talks? Like, it's not a beast. It's a beast system. It's entirely a metaphor to begin with. So to take it as a literal thing, well... But metaphorically, it's true. So metaphors can be true without being literally true, I think. That said, I think we're in big trouble. We're in big trouble. We're past persuasion. We need to have each other's backs. Those of us who are like-minded, we're in big trouble. So I'm actually a little bit shocked at how much trouble we're in. I have almost a 2-year-old, and I'm going to have to be there for him as a father. And the society I would have interacted with isn't there for me. Where am I going to get a job? What am I going to do? How am I even going to be a happy person? just like a well-adjusted person. These are all real problems for...
And every conversation and every opportunity is going to hinge on, have you been double vaccinated?
Every conversation we're having right now is
concert
surrounded
tickets
around that.
for December.
Right.
We're going to get to December, and they're going to say, well, we need proof of vaccination at the door. I just saw Tanya Black in the States going, no. And she's distraught.
Which store?
Tanya Black is in the States. She had tickets for Avatar in the States, her
Right.
favorite band. And they said double vaxxed only.
Right.
So rather than, or masks only, or whatever it was, she wouldn't comply with it.
Yeah.
So she forfeited her tickets. And then she was on Facebook bawling her eyes out because she's mentally distressed because she wanted to go be with her peeps and hit the mosh pit and
Right.
have some fun and let loose, and dancing is everything to her. And now she only dances in her bedroom by herself. And she was ripped, and I felt badly for her. And, I'm not one for, doing emotional videos and being vulnerable like that. That's just me. But I felt completely comfortable and pissed off watching her vent authentically about her lack of mental health because she chose not to comply and not to go to this thing in the States.
Right. Well, our normal lives aren't coming back without a fight. One way or the other, it's going to be some sort of fight.
What's up with Krista Barrett, what up? You got another clip to play?
I got a couple more tabs here before we close up the hour. Coercion. The most trusted news in Niagara says what? Coercion. So this is August 20th, August 21st editorial. No author behind this. Just the St. Catharines Standard, the Niagara Dailies came out with this, and they said,
we know who that is.
Enough with the restrictions and the threats of further lockdowns. By mandate or coercion, more people need to get vaccinated. I'm sorry. They put that in black and white. They put the word coercion.
They're not even trying to hide the ball
in
anymore.
black and white.
The New York Times came out with a piece that said exactly how they took Trump down by getting 4 states to, approve
how we
mail-in
saved
ballot.
democracy by thwarting it.
And they just said, here we go. We're right out in the open. This is how we did it. And
Criminals
it was
love to
planned
brag.
years ago. Oh, yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even trying to hide the ball anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this to me is really mind-blowing. This is super mind-blowing to me because, that is advocating a crime. Coercion is criminal. Coercion is criminal. They're advocating for coercion. I don't know. Define coercion. The practice of persuading someone to do something by force or threats. The Niagara Dailies called for this. And this is really, really bad. We don't have a legitimate media apparatus. That's pure propaganda, and actually it's really dangerous. It's dangerous for a few reasons. One, people might follow up on it and be like, yeah, that's a great idea, let's do it that way. It normalizes the coercion, if the newspaper can call for it, it must not be that bad. So a lot of people are just going to engage in coercion because it was normalized by the media. And then also there's those of us being coerced who might react very sharply to this. It's not going to bring out the best in us necessarily. Hey, populace, we're going to coerce you now. What the hell are we supposed to do about that? Should we go to Grant LaFlèche's house and protest at his house? We could. At any time. At any time I could be outside of Grant LaFlèche's house protesting. He put his balcony on Twitter. He told everyone where he lives accidentally because of his fucking garden. He's so proud of his little garden. Now I know where you live, Grant. At any point I can be on September 10th. I'll wish you a happy birthday, Grant. I'm talking peacefully, but happy birthday, Grant. You're a fucking asshole, Grant. You're calling for the coercion of the public. Oh, maybe Grant didn't write this. Maybe it was one of his homies, whoever's left there at the Niagara Dailies. But it's blood boiling because this is entirely inappropriate for them to call for a crime on the public. It's coercion. And let's not pretend that the coercion is going to be starting now. Let's start the coercion. The whole time it's been coercion. The entire time. Anyway, so that's I think that's a pretty sharp note to nail. Fucking coercion. And notice this. It's a social distancing sticker. The same kind of sticker I peeled up. Well, this one's pointing at the vaccine clinic, but it's a sticker on the floor. It was always pointing in this direction. And the entire time it was pointing in this direction.
Thanks to Doug Ford and what's his Deco?
Yeah, they made a lot of money off of stickers on the floor.
What's that company called?
I actually don't know.
Something Deco.
Yeah, I peeled up stickers not knowing that was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
Had I known, I might have hit that point a little harder. Like, I was more right than I knew.
Yeah.
I was quoted in Newsweek. And I got that here. I was quoted in Newsweek. Where is it?
Newsweek, complete trash, but okay.
Well, I mean, it's got exposure.
Yeah, definitely.
So I was quoted in Newsweek.
Back to the top.
What's that?
Yeah, right there. In August 2020.
Are you reading it?
Yeah, just scroll up just a little bit more. Okay, good. Perfect. In the first days of the new mask mandate, I went into a Shoppers Drug Mart and peeled up social distancing stickers while a friend filmed. The video went viral, and I was asked by Newsweek for a comment. This is what I wrote to the reporter, Matthew Impelli. My country is under United Nations and World Health Organization control. Wow. We're in a false state of emergency. Democracy has been suspended. The online channels I watch get deleted by YouTube.
It's true.
The normal path, I know all about that. The normal path of raising awareness is shut down, and the protests are co-opted. Small businesses are choked while we become dependent on and compliant with big box stores. Meanwhile, everyone is bending the knee to a quasi-Marxist cult. We've experienced a what?
An iconoclasm.
Okay, you'd pick it up from there.
An iconoclasm. An iconoclasm is when you tear down the icons of a society.
Okay.
So like knocking down Saddam Hussein or renaming Ryerson are both iconoclastic. And so, I peeled up stickers as a reverse iconoclasm. They're going to riot, break windows, kill people, billions of dollars of damage, and arson. All I did is peel up some stickers because their new structure is built on the foundation of the fear that justifies those stickers. But this is really why I wanted to get to it. Because people love when a prophecy comes true. People are like, oh, you're one of those prophet guys, huh? So I did it. I prophesized. I reject every aspect of the new normal.
Highlight that for us.
Sorry?
Just highlight it.
Highlight it?
Yeah.
There we go. I reject every aspect of the so-called new normal and understand clearly that this is a massive psychological conditioning operation with the target being administering injections. If mandatory masks and mandatory social distancing, why not mandatory vaccines? I authored that in August 2020. We are now in the state of mandatory vaccines. But it gets darker.
Oh, great.
The new normal is unacceptable, and by the time it becomes truly intolerable, the target would not be stickers. And I'm going to have to be non-specific in that because I actually don't know what that means specifically. But I know that they've upped the ante. They've come for our children, our bodily autonomy, our businesses, everything that's fun, everything that's rewarding, everything that's social.
Our churches.
They want a major big pharma, big telecom controlled corporate fascism. And there's no room for the individual in that. And we know it.
We've lost track of the individual is the highest priority. Individual, I mean, this idea of groupthink and putting people in categories based on their skin color or their medical status is abhorrent.
Right.
The highest ideal is the individual. It has to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the ultimate minority is the minority of one. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm happy to be here with you, Jim. I appreciate being here and having this opportunity. I know that people do listen to our talks, and that it means something to them. So I thank the viewers as well.
Yeah, we got some comments of people that are appreciative, and just
we got any comments we want to reply to before we close it out for the hour?
Yeah, I can get to that. Just to say though, you know, we kind of had this planned for a week or so, and I think we had an idea what we might do here or whatever. I don't ever plan anything unless it's an interview, and like we just decided, you want to go live? I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, I can throw the shit together. It doesn't take that too long.
Hey, we got a second computer here now.
Yeah, thanks to Tim, this works out really well. So I can have him like hit that monologue too. Hit play on that over to the right. See, plays the third button in. Yeah, middle log, the silver one. This thing's loaded up with so much shit too.
Simply having a wonderful new world order. Okay, can I stop it though?
Yeah, just press the button that's lit up again. Press the red button that's lit up there. It says play. No. Third button in. Middle. Yep, right there. See it's lit up? It says play? Yeah.
It says play.
Hit it again.
Why you make me so stupid on
Hit the play button again. The one that's
watching right now.
it's red.
Holly?
No, hit the play button. It's red already.
I'll make you get up again. Well, folks, hold the line. Stay alive. Survive. Are we going to read some comments?
Yeah, we're gonna read some comments, but
We got 2 minutes until our next thing.
Oh yeah, I got to take a call.
Jim's
1 minute.
taking a call.
Oh,
Thanks for
yeah,
tuning
shit.
in.
Thanks for
Follow me
Anyways,
at
I just
WTF
wanted to
Niagara.
say I didn't plan this out too greatly, and that's fine. All we planned was a hang and a brainstorm session, but
Boom.
just talking out there makes me feel like I'm not alone, because yesterday I had a bad day.
Yeah, me
I
too.
was really black-pilled yesterday, hopeless, and I'm supposed to be right now helping to pick people up, keep them positive.
Right.
And I'm like, I want out of this country so bad. I can't. I just, now my birthday, September 22nd, has become D-Day, which, if I'm not on a flight out of this country before then, I feel like I won't get out of it. And I've never wanted to leave so badly. I don't.
Right, which makes it hard
that.
for us to plan the future when it's like...
Never wanted to leave, and I'm not sure that that's going to actually happen, but I have options, and I just have to look at it. Anyways, Kathy Cross, right, flu season does not fit their plans.
Yeah, we're in for a rough winter, folks.
Find me on social
We're in
media
for a rough winter, to be
see.
honest. We need to really prepare for the worst case scenario.
Leighton says pharmaceutical intervention fooled the nations. Maria Jane, I'm glad you guys are able to sift through these updates. I can't stand hearing any of their voices. Will He Is says, but I'm racist for not liking race-swapped comic characters. Jennifer
Right.
Marco.
That's right.
Richard Siret show yesterday said the profile of a non-vax person is a 42-year-old female who voted Liberal.
That's according to some studies. I saw that. That is not just a random claim.
The profile of a non-vaxxed person
In the States.
is a 42-year-old female who voted Liberal. That doesn't fit the narrative. That doesn't fit the
No.
stereotype.
None of it fits the narrative. But honestly, women
This guy
are so precious and wonderful that the idea that we're going to experiment with their reproductive capabilities is just egregious. It's just totally messed up. We could really go on for hours, but we're going to end up in a second hour now if we keep going.
I got a call to take.
So we're going to cut and run. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for having us, Jim, me and myself and I. And happy to be here with you.
Thanks, brother.
And I'll be back.
All right. Peace out. Go check out WTF Niagara. We are out.